And we are live. Hello, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I had to check what day it is. And welcome to a Facebook Live about one of my favorite topics, which is Talk to the Entities. And so I am a Talk to the Entities facilitator. What is that? Someone who has a craft to talk to the spirit world. In other words, people who no longer have bodies. And I facilitate this work. I'm a facilitator of Talk to the Entities, the introduction, which is where you're introduced to the education and the information of Talk to the Entities. And then there's the beginning, which is a 2.5 day. Oops, forgot to turn off my WhatsApp. A 2.5 day class. So tonight I chose to do, sorry guys, when your phone goes off in the middle of a live, it distracted me for a moment. So tonight I'm going to talk about what we call the top 5 myths and the top 5 often confused truths about entities. And I'm going to go through each one. And what I would suggest if you're watching this, just push down all your barriers and see if the information brings you a sense of lightness or more energy, then it's true for you. And if it's heavy, then it's what we say in Access. If it's true, it's light. If it's heavy, it's always a lie. Okay. So the first top myth is clearing entities is not difficult. You only require tools that work. Hi, Agnes. Clearing entities is not difficult. You only require tools that work. So I would have done other modalities, I'm going to say, that you would run around your house with sage, or you would put up a barrier to your client. Whereas Talk to the Entities, there's very simple clearings. We call them the clearings, and they were designed by Gary Douglas. And then Shannon O'Hara brought them into the work of Talk to the Entities, and she built on that work. So to clear an entity with, I'm going to say like an identity, someone who's stuck in an identity. It might be Padraig, who died in West Cork, which is an area in Ireland, and he worked on the farm, and his whole identity was steeped in his beliefs, his points of views, his judgments, his ideals. And so the basic clearing is, who were you? So the concept of Talk to the Entities, which is a huge thing to talk about in a Facebook, Instagram Live, is you are an infinite being. You are part of infinite fields of energy, infinite consciousness. Your body is part of that. And so what occurs when someone gets stuck in an identity, they get stuck in who am I? Okay, so who were you? And when you're running these clearings, you're gifting them consciousness. You're gifting them infinite choice. Who are you? Who were you before that? Who are you before that? Who were you before that? And who can you be in the future? And it is so simple, effective. And I have been using these tools 13 years ago. I did my first Talk to the Entities class, and it always works. I suppose before that, the question would be, is this an entity, so that you can get information if you're dealing with an entity. And so that's your identity clearing. So all of the magnetic imprinting, which is the fingerprint of the person, and destroy and uncreate all of that. That's the Access consciousness. Destroy and uncreate anything that's limiting you. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 100 shorts, boys, povads, creation spaces and beyonds, because we're always moving to limitless energy, limitless possibility, limitless choice. And then the entity clearing for someone who has a job, let's say, you know, I'm just looking at a job that someone, let's say someone was a soldier and their job was to fight for their country. They may be stuck if they died in a trauma, or if they died in a traumatic event. If they were killed in a traumatic event, they might be in PTSD. So you can run the clearing. What are you? What was your job? So you're bringing infinite consciousness and you're gifting that. And you learn all these tools in the Talk to the Entities introduction, and we really go into it in the beginning. And if you want to check out Shannon O'Hara, She has a YouTube channel, Talk to the Entities, and these clearings are in there and you can play with them. What was your job? What was your job before that? What was your job before that? And then what can your job be in the future? In other words, you know, let's say Gerard in Germany, who was a soldier in World War II, he doesn't have to be stuck in that job fighting for his country forever, that he now recognizes there are different choices available. Very simple. And everything holding that in place, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all 100 shorts, boys, povids, creations, bases, and beyonds. So the big message from Talk to the Entities is a world that includes all beings, because we live in a world that people make it crazy or wrong if you have an ability to see entities or be aware of entities. I don't see entities. I'm more sensitive to energies like thoughts or feelings or what the entity is communicating. And we talk way more about that in the beginning class. So that's the clearings. Very effective. They work. They always gift me way more space. And if you find that energy compresses or changes when you walk into an old church or an old mosque or a building, there's history in these buildings, and so these clearings are very effective. Number 2, I'm pretty sure I won't get to all 5 tonight. I'll aim for 3 and then we can see where we go from there. Number 2, if you think entities are scary and bad, that is how they will show up for you. So I was one of the people that had the point of view that entities were scary and bad. I had someone that I knew that went through a traumatic death, okay? And when he used to come around me, it was quite like aggressive. And so my point of view was, I'm not going to be aware of entities because they're scary and bad, because this ghost was, don't want to say bad, scary, okay? Actually, the spirit kingdom is very diverse, just like people. Some people are unconscious, against consciousness. They have no idea what they're doing with their life or what they're creating with their life. Some people are checked out. Entities can show up the same. Some people are aware and present and conscious, and they know what they're choosing with their life and the way they would like to live. And so the big thing about this is your point of view creates your reality. If you impede a point of view that the spirit world is scary and bad, then that is the way that you will experience the spirit world. And so what we're inviting you to Talk to the Entities is this energy space and consciousness that includes all energies, the macro beings of consciousness, the beings of consciousness, teammates, spirits of the earth, you know, mountains, oceans, bodies of water. And then you will have entities also that are like my uncle, stuck in a trauma, stuck in being scared, compressed. We're inviting you to come out of fear, because all fear does is it actually creates more fear. And so there's always an ability to create and choose something different rather than just fear. And that's really the invitation of Talk to the Entities, to create a world where we have an openness, an inclusion of all beings, instead of this fear is always a barrier, it's a separation. And so instead of this fear and rejection and exclusion, that we can create openness, inclusion. And for me, that's such, if you're out there and you know you have an ability to be aware of energies, because it's all an expression of energy, then start to ask, is this an entity? Hi, Zoltan. And then number 3. Now, this is one of the ones that can be in cultures that like worship ancestors, or cultures that worship big deities. Entities are not wiser or more powerful than you. I would say when I started to talk to the entities, I had the point of view that there were entities outside of me that were way more powerful than me. And so what I'm saying in that is I am not part of consciousness. I am not part of infinite fields of energy. And you're making it significant. And anything you make significant, you cannot receive. You're projecting at this being. You're not receiving the gift that they can be for you. But more relevant is you're not receiving the gift that you have and that you are. So entities are not. So we are saying entities are not wiser or more powerful than you. And sometimes you might deal with entities that are very confused and lost. And they might not, most of the beings that I deal with, they haven't even perceived that they're dead, simply because they weren't present for the death process. So let's recap. Number one, clearing entities is not difficult. You only require tools that work. I've gifted you these tools. You can check out the YouTube channel and you can work the clearings and let me know how it goes. And number two, if you think entities are scary and bad, that is how they will show up for you. A lot of drama, a lot of significance, instead of getting present. Would an infinite being ever be scared of an energy? Or would an infinite being be present and handle and deal all energies, or not be the effect of all energies? And then number three, entities are not wiser or more powerful than you. In other words, anything that is trying to have power over is a control mechanism. Talk to the entities, and in Access Consciousness, we talk about true power. And true power is the ability to choose anything, to change anything, and to out-create any limitation. Very different perspective. Number four, entities will give back to you if you ask. This one is, I'm actually going to finish with this one. This one is something that I am completely in wonder of. When we clear entities, we ask to be compensated for our time and our gift. It's actually a craft. I had to really develop my craft because I had been sterilized due to the way that I grew up, which was denial of the spirit world and a lot of fixed points of views instead of receiving. We talk about knowing, receiving, perceiving, and being. And so one of the things that we practice in Talk to Entities is when you run a clearing, that you ask the entity to be compensated for your time and your craft and the gift. And in Access Consciousness, in fact, one of the, let's call them like one of the universal truths is when you gift, you will receive 10 times greater or more. And so when you ask, hey, can you compensate me? Entities are always willing to compensate. And it doesn't show up in the way that you think it will. It will show up in the most random ways. You'll be gifted a ring. Or I have been gifted the strangest of gifts all over the world. And I know it is when you are willing to be a gift to the spirit world, then it will be a gift to you. And so, good evening, Talk to Entities in Poland, October. That's correct. So guys, what I would love you to know is that all over the world this weekend, there is going to be a feast of Talk to the Entities classes. Introductions start all over the world Friday night, and Saturday and Sunday there's a beginning. I'm also doing an introduction and Talk to the Entities the beginning. If you are in a place where you know you require in-depth education and information that allows your knowing to become stronger. What do you know about the spirit world? What gifts and capacities have you to talk to the spirit world that you're not using to your advantage? Entities, working with entities has improved my daily living. I had a lot of depression. That wasn't even mine. I no longer have that. I had a lot of sadness. Those weren't even my feelings. They were entities communicating. And so my living has got richer from a psychological perspective, from a physiological perspective, and it's also got richer in a wealth perspective, my ability to receive, my ability to enjoy being alive, my ability to allow myself to be taken care of by the macro beings of consciousness. So I hope this information and this live contributes to you. What we're looking to create and generate is a world that includes all beings, where we no longer have to have, I had shame about being ghost aware, where you no longer have to have shame or, I'm going to say, like, hide away what you are aware of. And what would it take for us to live in a world where, and we are I am creating that even by this live, in a world where we recognize and include that the spirit world is, like, the spirit world is a reality. That is true. And I am aware, as many others are aware, of the spirit world. And we invite you to nurture and to use your capacity to your advantage. In other words, that it becomes beneficial to your living. So big thank you to all the translators. We've had lots of languages here: Hungarian, Turkish, Czech, Polish, and check out Talk to the Entities. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks to all the translators, and I hope this contributed to you. Mwah.